Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. It finally happened, and the whispers that started as small conversations in sports bars, group chats, and behind-the-scenes reports have erupted into a tidal wave of news. TUA TAGOVAILOA is no longer the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins. For weeks, fans felt this cloud hanging over the franchise, and insiders hinted at potential fractures between the coaching staff and their supposed franchise quarterback. The Dolphins entered the season with expectations as high as they've ever been in recent memory, riding on a wave of optimism after Tua's flashes of brilliance in recent years. But optimism can turn to impatience in professional sports, especially when a team feels like it's on the cusp of something bigger. This decision marks the end of a chapter that many thought would blossom into a story of redemption and triumph. But instead it is closed with the sound of murmurs about what could have been. For the Dolphins, this isn't just about changing quarterbacks. It's about tearing down the central figure who represented their future, and that shock is resonating through locker rooms, press conferences, and living rooms where Dolphins fans are still trying to process what just happened. The conversation around Tua's departure isn't as simple as wins and losses. Sure, the Dolphins had moments of brilliance during his tenure, but those flashes often came tangled with inconsistency, injuries, and doubts about whether his style could truly elevate the team to championship heights. For a fan base that has been starving for a reliable, long-term answer at quarterback since the legendary days of Dan Marino, the emotional weight of this decision cuts even deeper. Tua was supposed to be more than just a player. He was the symbol of hope, the face of a new era, the talent Miami had waited decades for. That's why the ending feels so dramatic, almost cinematic, because fans invested not just in the throws and touchdowns, but in the story of a young man overcoming odds and criticism to carry their franchise. And now, as the Dolphins pull the plug, questions are swirling. Did they give up too early, or did they hold on too long? The speculation is relentless, and the noise doesn't stop, because in the NFL, the quarterback position isn't just a role, it's an identity, and Miami has just erased theirs. Behind closed doors, the rumor mill says tension had been growing for months. Coaches and executives allegedly clashed over whether Tua fit the long-term vision. Some pointed to his accuracy, leadership, and ability to spark explosive plays as evidence that patience was the right path. Others, however, whispered that durability concerns, limited mobility, and occasional struggles against elite defenses made him more of a risk than a reward. The NFL is a league of results, not promises, and for every game where Tua looked like a franchise cornerstone, there was another where critics sharpened their knives, questioning if he could withstand the grind of a full season. Add to this the business side of football, contracts, salary cap implications, and the ever-present desire for a superstar quarterback, and the decision begins to look less like an emotional shock and more like the cold calculation of an organization desperate to win now. Miami's front office seems to have concluded that their window to contend is too small for uncertainty, and Tua, unfortunately, became the casualty of that mindset. The timing of the move couldn't be more dramatic, arriving in the middle of conversations about the Dolphins being a legitimate contender. On one hand, it signals a bold, fearless stance by the franchise. They are willing to take risks, even ones that will polarize their fans, in the pursuit of a championship. On the other hand, it feels reckless, like cutting the cord without having a clear backup plan, leaving the entire organization exposed to scrutiny and chaos. Imagine being a Dolphins fan today, waking up and realizing the quarterback you cheered for, defended in arguments, and bought jerseys of, is suddenly gone. The emotional whiplash is overwhelming, and the chatter across social media proves it. Some fans are applauding the move, arguing that Tua never truly lived up to the expectations, while others are furious, pointing fingers at the franchise for failing to protect him, surround him properly, or stand by him through adversity. This divide is as loud as the news itself, and it's shaping what could be one of the most controversial moments in recent Dolphins history. From a league-wide perspective, this move throws gasoline onto an already blazing fire of quarterback speculation. Where does Tua go from here? Will another team swoop in and bet on his upside, believing that Miami simply mishandled him? Or will he struggle to find a starting role, forced into a backup position until he proves otherwise? These questions dominate sports talk shows, podcasts, and locker room conversations across the NFL. Quarterbacks don't just vanish. They resurface in unexpected places, sometimes with a vengeance, and that narrative could play out here. Imagine Tua landing in a system that maximizes his strengths, with a coaching staff willing to build around his skill set, and suddenly proving Miami wrong on the biggest stage. That storyline alone keeps fans glued to every rumor and insider tweet, because in this league, redemption arcs are just as captivating as downfalls. The Dolphins may have closed their chapter with Tua, but the NFL book is far from finished, and the next page could be even more shocking. For Tua himself, this is both an ending and an opportunity. The heartbreak of being told you're no longer the face of the franchise you gave everything for is real, but so is the chance to reinvent yourself. Players throughout NFL history have thrived after leaving their first team, shaking off labels and rewriting their legacies. The whispers suggest Tua is already motivated, already planning his next move, determined to prove the doubters wrong. In moments like this, the mental toughness of an athlete is tested, and for someone who has battled through injuries, skepticism, and constant comparison since the day he entered the league, this could be the spark that pushes him to new heights. The Dolphins may believe they're moving on to something better, but in doing so, they may have just created the most dangerous version of Tua yet. Fans will watch closely, because whether you love him or criticize him, you cannot ignore him. And that's why this story is only just beginning to unfold. The Dolphins' locker room is now at the center of speculation, with insiders hinting at a mix of shock and quiet acceptance. Some players reportedly felt blindsided by the decision, as if the rug had been pulled out from under them, while others believed the writing was on the wall all along. Football is a brutal business, and loyalty rarely outweighs the drive to win, but the human side of this move cannot be ignored. Teammates who shared victories, defeats, and countless hours of preparation with Tua are now left processing his absence, while also being told to immediately pivot and buy into a new plan. For a team that preached chemistry and togetherness, this sudden fracture could be dangerous, threatening the fragile balance of a roster that was supposedly built for a deep playoff run. Reports of emotional goodbyes, tense conversations, and even disagreements about how this was handled are beginning to trickle out. No matter how well the Dolphins try to spin the narrative publicly, privately, this feels like a decision that has divided the room. And once division sets in, it can spread quickly, creating cracks that no amount of talent can fully cover. Fans, meanwhile, are still trying to reconcile what this means for the team's future. Social media has exploded with debates, with hashtags trending in support of Tua and others celebrating the move as necessary. You can almost feel the pulse of Miami sports talk right now, with callers flooding radio shows, some expressing heartbreak, and others practically throwing victory parades. That division is what makes this moment so captivating, because rarely does a franchise-altering decision create such a sharp split among its fan base. Jerseys are being burned in frustration, while others are proudly kept as symbols of loyalty to Tua. The narrative isn't just about football. It's about identity, community, and the emotional bonds between a city and its players. In Miami, where sports culture is woven into the energy of the city itself, this feels bigger than a simple roster change. It feels like a cultural flashpoint, where fans are being forced to pick sides, and whichever side they land on, the passion is intense. This isn't just a headline. It's a movement that has ignited conversations everywhere from offices to beaches. Nationally, the ripple effect is just as strong. Analysts across networks are dissecting every angle, arguing over whether the Dolphins made a courageous call or an unforgivable mistake. Some pundits frame it as bold vision, a team refusing to settle for mediocrity and daring to chase greatness. Others see it as short-sighted panic, an organization failing to nurture its talent and crumbling under pressure. The endless hot takes make it clear, Tua's exit is not just a Dolphins story, it's an NFL story. Whenever a starting quarterback is suddenly pushed aside, the entire league pays attention because it reshapes dynamics, trade markets, and even playoff predictions. Rival teams are already being linked to Tua in speculative reports, with whispers about franchises that might pounce at the chance to scoop up a quarterback with proven flashes of brilliance. If Tua resurfaces quickly in a competitive situation, the spotlight will only grow brighter, and Miami's decision will face even more scrutiny. This isn't a quiet ending. This is the beginning of a saga that will unfold across the league stage. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? From a historical perspective, the Dolphins' choice echoes other quarterback dramas that have shaken franchises before. Think of players who were once written off, only to rise again and define their careers elsewhere. Fans and analysts alike are already drawing comparisons, wondering if Tua will follow that pattern or fade into the long list of quarterbacks who never fully lived up to expectations. Miami's history with quarterbacks makes this even more loaded, because the franchise has long been haunted by the absence of a true successor to Dan Marino. Each attempt has carried immense pressure, and each failure has deepened the frustration. Tua was supposed to break that cycle, the golden draft pick who would finally steady the ship. Instead, his departure risks cementing the narrative that Miami simply cannot develop or sustain a franchise quarterback. If that perception takes root, it could impact not only their reputation but their ability to attract future stars. Players and agents pay attention to these storylines, and the Dolphins' decision could carry ripple effects for years. That's why this move feels less like a single choice and more like a defining chapter in the identity of the franchise. For Tua's supporters, the belief remains that he will rise stronger from this setback. They point to his resilience, the way he fought through adversity in college, the way he silenced critics with flashes of precision and poise on NFL Sundays. The narrative of the underdog, cast aside too soon, is one that resonates deeply with sports fans, and Tua's story fits perfectly into that mold. Already, speculation about his next destination fuels hope, with fan bases of quarterback-needy teams rallying around the idea of giving him a fresh start. This is where the human element of sports storytelling shines brightest. The comeback story, the chance to prove everyone wrong. Whether it's true or not, the perception is powerful, and it keeps people invested. Every workout video, every hint of interest from another team, every insider report will now be magnified tenfold. For Tua, this moment could be the ultimate turning point, the place where his career narrative shifts from uncertainty to redemption, and fans will be watching every step with fascination. As for the Dolphins, they now face the daunting task of justifying this gamble. Moving on from a quarterback is never easy, but doing so without an immediate, clear upgrade makes the decision even riskier. The spotlight is now brighter than ever on the front office and coaching staff, who must prove they made the right call. If the Dolphins thrive, reaching new heights and finally breaking through the playoff ceiling, this move will be remembered as brave and visionary. But if they stumble, if inconsistency returns or the offense sputters, this will be remembered as the blunder that set the team back years. That's the razor's edge the organization now walks on, with fans, media, and even players watching closely. One thing is certain, this story is not over. It will evolve with every game, every headline, and every play Tua makes in his next chapter. The Dolphins may believe they've moved on, but the shadow of this decision will follow them for a long time. And in the theater of the NFL, that shadow will loom over every Sunday, demanding answers the franchise must eventually provide. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.